Welcome everyone in the Cloud Technicals with a new educational video. I am Paramjit Singh. The topic which we have choose today for discussion is very commonly discussed and the known one, migration of data into the cloud. In this video, we will specifically talk about migrating the data into the AWS cloud. Whenever we think about migrating of data into the cloud, the common questions which are being asked or which we think about are why we need to choose to migrate the data to the cloud. What is the data about which we need to move to cloud? Where we are going to store this data in the cloud with services like S3, EC2 instances or the other. When we are planning to get this migration happen, how much is the amount of data? And what is the existing network bandwidth available with us which we can use for this migration? When we have the answers of these all questions, we can design our strategy, we can choose our tools and technologies which we will use to get this migration done successfully. Let's quickly look into a few of the services which we can use to migrate our data. File transfer, which is the general one where we can use the FTP protocols, UDP protocols to move our data from the on-premises to the S3 or an EC2 instance. NFS mounts, these are now available on-premises and with the AWS also. We know a service like EFS where we can use it. We can leverage the traditional backup applications like Net Backup, CA, where we can back up our existing data and then we can ship it to or move it to the AWS. We can leverage the AWS storage gateway service, which is available with us and provide us with the asynchronous backup. We can use the AWS import exports or the snowball, where we can ship a snowball or a disk to the AWS full of data which can be moved into the S3. We can look for databases backup and data replication technologies, and we can move that data to the AWS. We have a direct connect service from the AWS, which will provide a consistent network bandwidth up to 10 Gbps, which can also be used to plan for data migration. These are the commonly known service and technologies which we can choose from, or we can mix and match. We can choose multiple to design our strategy to move the data. Now let's quickly look into how we can mix up and how we can choose multiple technologies available and plan our data migration. This is a chart where we have divided the screen into the four parts, whereas from left hand side to the right hand side is the data size, and the left side shows us the data velocity, the amount of data which is getting being changed frequently. So these four columns will describe. Let's take an example like the customer when is thinking about migrating his data to the cloud would fall into one of these four brackets. So based on the bracket the customer falls up, we will define our strategy, or this would be the one of the best strategy which a customer can look for to plan his migration. Let's take a quick example and see how. For the first tabular where the size of customers data is in the GBs and the data doesn't change so frequent. So the customer can look for moving the data from on-premises to the AWS by transferring over the internet by using the FTP protocols, by using the UDP protocols, and he can transfer that data to the AWS S3. This is why, because the data is in GBs, it is in the less capacity, and data is not changing so frequently. Similarly, if we move little bit ahead of the lower tabular form, where the customer has a data size in the TBs or we can say in the petabytes, and again the data is not changing too fast. The customer can look for the services like import export or the snowball, where the customer can copy the data to the snowball or the external disk which he have, and then he can ship that disk or the snowball to the AWS so that the data can be uploaded into the S3. As the data size is much and still changes, the customer can look for uh, the constant infrequent data transfers also to the S3 location. There are other many services available with the S3 which can which can be used to leverage the transfer the data. Let's look up for an another use case also, which falls into the top left bracket, where the data changes rate is higher than than the options which we have discussed, and but still the data is in the GBs. In this scenario, the customer can look for one-time upload of the data, and the constant push of the change of the delta in constant change of delta to the S3 or to the AWS service, primarily which can be S3. Similarly, if we move again to the right, where the data is in petabytes, TBs, and petabytes, and also there is a higher velocity of data change. The customer can look for UDP transfers, and customer can leverage the AWS storage service. The important thing to note here is there is no particular freeze use case or the services which can define a particular data migration. It is always dependent upon what are the factors available with us, what are the services which we can use. Again, the answers to the questions which we discussed in the first slide would make us more easy to choose about the strategy, to define the strategy, and to choose upon the tools and services which we are going to use. Let's quickly take up our use case and discuss. There is a customer who do not want to add a new storage to its data center. The files which he is looking to move to the AWS would be the general files, video files, and the log data. Customer is looking to move the data to the Amazon S3 or maybe in future to the Glacier. The time frame he is looking is a month or two. The data is of around 80 TB, and he do not want to leverage his existing bandwidth. So this is the very much good case where we can look for something a service like we talked about here, because the data change would not be very much. The customer is not ready to leverage the its existing bandwidth, so so he's looking for something like an offline backup. So the answer for this type of migration, or the best strategy for this type of migration, would be to choose from either of the snowball mobile, or snowball edge, which can be used to ship the data into the AWS S3. And then with the other services like lifecycle rules, we can um, move the data from the S3 to the Glacier for more cost benefits. Let's take another example. The customer is looking for the app data migration. Data size would be around from 1 petabyte to 80 terabyte, 80 terabyte to 1 petabyte. Customer is looking for transfer to the S3. Time frame is around a month, and he has an existing free bandwidth of 5 GB. Let's quickly think where this migration would set up. The customer has 5 GB GBps of existing network bandwidth. Customer has around 80 TB to 1 petabyte, and in a month time, customer is looking for to move this transfer. So this is again a use case where we can look for something, so services like import export. We can look for something services like an UDP protocol, or we can or a new service which is data sync available with the AWS can be used to migrate this data to the cloud. Let's quickly see what is the answer for it. Yes, we can look for the a data sync service where just we can leverage the customer's existing 5 Gbps of bandwidth. We can install an data sync agent into the customer's data center, which will sync to the AWS service. We can look for storage gateway also, and then we can plan our migration. So now we are pretty much aware about what is the AWS migration, how we can plan it. So let's quickly wind up with few of these services which can be used and the use cases for those services. If we have got large batch files we need to move to the AWS cloud, the best service would be the Snowball or Snowball Edge mobile, which can be used. If we are looking for something with the edge computing and the data transfer, we can look for Snowball Edge. If we are looking to augment on-premises with the cloud, we can leverage the AWS storage gateway services. If we are looking for a dedicated network which can be utilized for this migration, we can opt for AWS Direct Connect. If we want to integrate our existing software for this migration, we can look for third-party connectors available which can help you with this. If we are looking for the long distances transfer, we can use the AWS S3 transfer acceleration service, which will use the AWS edge locations to move this data. If we are looking for the streaming data, then Kinesis is the option which is available for us to use from. I hope this information is very helpful to you. I'm happy to answer your questions if you have some special use cases which can be discussed. What you feel about this video, do mention in the comment box and I will be happy to incorporate all those changes. Do not forget to subscribe this channel so that you can get more educational videos related to the AWS services. Thank you.